Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. And what have I been getting up to this week? Oh, Jingles, we know you've been playing Fallout 4. Actually, no. Well, a little bit, yeah. But not that much. And not that much, well, certainly not this weekend, because of this whole Armored Warfare Black Friday thing, which has just been absolutely incredible for grinding out experience. Although, they call it reputation in Armored Warfare, but I call it experience so everybody knows what I'm talking about, even if you don't play Armored Warfare. This Black Friday event that they've been running has been absolutely insane for grinding out experience on your vehicles. Just to put this into context, when I started playing Armored Warfare this weekend, and each day, literally Saturday and Sunday, all I did was the first win of the day in PvE mode, which doesn't get you as much experience as PvP. Just the first win of the day in all of my premium vehicles, so I could convert the experience, and all of the vehicles that I did not have fully researched and hadn't unlocked the next vehicle in line. At the time I started, I only had two Tier 5 vehicles, the Mark 5 Chieftain and the T-72. Oh, and they're not fully upgraded. I mean, they're not stock, but I've only got a couple of upgrades unlocked on both of them, or at least I did when I started playing. And I didn't even get to play all of the daily triples on Saturday, but I did manage to get them all done on Sunday. And at the end of play on Sunday, after just playing the first win of the day in each of the machines that I was currently grinding experience on, as well as all of my premiums, I'd managed to not just fully upgrade the Chieftain and the T-72, but I was also about 70 to 80% on the way towards unlocking the T-80 and the Challenger 1. As well as I'd unlocked the LAV-300, the Sheridan, the Swingfire, and fully upgraded them all. The M60 Starship, and a couple of others as well, I can't remember what. The amount of experience you were earning, literally just for logging in and getting the first battle of the day, was absolutely absurd. I even played some PvP. It went about as well as you can imagine. I thought I'd have a go. Normally I only really play Armored Warfare and PvE. If I want to play PvP tank combat, I've got World of Tanks for that. But PvE is the thing that Armored Warfare does, that World of Tanks doesn't. And it's quite relaxing and it's fun. It's not nearly as frustrating as PvP can be. But you do earn a lot less in PvE rather than in PvP. So I thought, I'll have a go. Oh, actually, a quick word about PvE content in Armored Warfare, because I've noticed a couple of comments when I've been putting the occasional Armored Warfare video up, and it's mostly PvE content. In fact, I think it's pretty much all PvE content. And people have been saying, oh, Jingle, stop playing in PvE, it's easy mode. Well, it is easy mode if you play on easy or medium difficulty, but once you get Tier 5 vehicles, you can start playing on hard difficulty, and hard's a bit of a challenge. But the thing about PvE, and by the way, just for the benefit of anybody for whom English is not your first language, PvE means player versus environment. It's basically players against AI, which is what you can see happening here in my, can't even remember what the name of the vehicle is, doesn't matter, not important. AMX-10 P90, I believe, the Mercenary Edition. Anyway, it's probably more accurate not to think of it as cooperative PvE, but rather competitive PvE. Yeah, sure, you're working together to complete the objectives and defeat the bots, but you're not really playing together. You're kind of competing with the other guys on your team to score the most damage and get the most kills and the most assists and the most spots and so on and so on and so on. So there is an element of competition going on there, but it's not against the AI, it's against everybody else in your team to see who can come ahead and do the best. It's still entirely possible to lose if you're playing in PvE co-op mode, even if you're playing in medium difficulty setting, which really is a cakewalk, but you get people that just rush ahead into the trigger locations that spawn all of the bloody bots at the same time, and you get overwhelmed. It happens. It's annoying, but it's nowhere near as frustrating as what you see happen regularly in PvP play, because I tried PvP for the first time in a while, spawned on a map that I had never seen before. It doesn't appear in the PvE rotation, or if it does, I have never seen it. I was in the VFM Mark 5, which is a premium Tier 6 light tank. Bottom tier in the battle, finished third on damage and experience earned, and of course we lost. So, that's the kind of frustration you have to put up with all the time when you're playing in PvP. Had another go, of course, and absolutely sucked. I think I was the third one killed out of a team of 15. And of course we won that one, so it's just like World of Tanks, isn't it? I don't know. So yeah, I've basically been spending the entire weekend, from Saturday evening on, just playing against simulated opponents in Armoured Warfare, and having a lot of fun doing it. Which reminded me, actually, of a little story that happened while I was in the Navy. I may have actually told you this story before, I'm not entirely sure, but it was to do with when we were conducting some exercises with various different European navies. I think it was definitely the Dutch. Definitely the Dutch, I remember that pretty clearly. Probably also the Germans, maybe the Swedes and the Norwegians. And we'd been running exercises all week, and the weekend arrived, and there was a full exercise program for the weekend too. What ship was I on? I think it might have been HMS Coventry, Type 22 frigate. Anyway, we turned up in the exercise area on Saturday morning, bright and early. There's nobody else there. What the hell's going on here? Navigator, said the captain. Are you sure we're in the right place? Navigator, sweating bullets, went to check his charts. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, we're in the correct place, sir. Right. Ops officer, are we here at the correct time? Ops officer went away to check the op order. Yep, we're here at the correct time, sir. Well, then where the hell is everybody? I mean, Saturday's exercises are due to start in half an hour. Communications yeoman. Find out where everybody is. So the yeoman went away and came back with the news that everybody had gone home for the weekend. Apart from us. We were the only idiots still out there. But they hadn't bothered to tell anybody. You see, it turns out that European navies don't do weekends. No, really. They'd just taken one look at this exercise program and said, no, we're not doing that. And gone home. So we're out there alone with no friends to play with, and what did we do? Did we do the sensible thing and go home for the weekend as well? No, of course not. We simulated a bunch of enemies. In fact, it was a lot like this.
Now, today we're going to do marching up and down the square. That is, unless any of you got anything better to do. Well, anyone got anything they'd rather be doing than marching up and down the square? Yes, Atkinson. What would you rather be doing, Atkinson?
Well, to be quite honest, Sarge, I'd rather be at home with the wife and kids.
Would you now?
Yes, Sarge.
Right, off you go. Now, everybody else happy with my little plan of marching up and down the square a bit?
Sarge,
Yes.
I've got a book I'd quite like to read.
Right, you go read your book then. Now, everybody else quite content to join in with my little scheme of marching up and down the square?
Sarge?
Yes, Wycliffe, what is it?
Well, I'm learning the piano.
Learning the piano?
Yes, Sarge.
And I suppose you want to go and practice, eh? Marching up and down the square, not good enough for you, eh?
Well,
Right, off you go! Now, what about the rest of you? Rather be at the pictures, I suppose. All right, off you go! Bloody army, I don't know what it's coming to. Right, Sergeant Major marching up and down the square. Left, right.
Any excuse to show a bit of Monty Python. But that is quite literally exactly what we ended up doing. Nobody else wanted to come out and play. They all had better things to do. So we just simulated a whole bunch of enemies and basically spent the entire weekend playing with ourselves because nobody else wanted to play with us. Only the Royal Navy would do that. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. Oh, and the reason I said that I clearly remember that the Dutch were involved was because we had a bunch of guys, sometimes when we're operating with other navies we do this thing called a cross pole. And basically what that means is we take a bunch of guys from our ship and we swap them with various different sailors from other different ships. Just for a little bit of, seeing how the other half live. Well, anyway, when the guys came back from the Dutch ship, which ship was it? HNLMS. Jacob van Heemskerk, I think it was. Dutch frigate. Well, anyway, whatever the name of the ship was, it's not important. When the crew that we put on board this Dutch ship for the week's exercises came back on board on the Monday morning, obviously, because they were on the Dutch ship and they hadn't bothered playing silly buggers on the weekend the same way we did. Instead, they'd managed to get a weekend in Amsterdam while we were all at action stations over the weekend. Yeah. So yeah, they loved the Dutch Navy. Of course they did. But when they came back on board, they had some stories, because there was a definite bit of culture shock went on their first night on board this Dutch frigate. Close of play on the Monday, they all went for a shower before cleaning in a night rig, getting ready to go to dinner. And yeah, all the Dutch guys and girls listening to this part of the video know exactly what's coming, because the Dutch have a very liberal attitude towards sex, much more so than we stuffy Brits. So the guys went for a shower, and oh my god, tits! There are women in the showers with us, what the hell's going on? Dutch Navy have unisex showers. Dutch women sleep and live in the same mess decks as the Dutch men, and they just don't care, and they really don't see what the fuss is all about. So yeah, after that everybody was volunteering to go on board the Dutch ships. Also, fun fact, Dutch women are the tallest women in the world. Did you know that? Yeah, it's true. Don't worry, that's got absolutely nothing to do with the story about the Dutch Navy. I just thought I'd throw it in there. True story. So, yeah, anyway. I do like the Netherlands. I mean, it's probably the one country that I've been to more than any other. Purely and simply because of the relationship that exists between the Royal Marines and the Dutch Marines. They exercise with each other every year. Where was it we went? Oh, it was Den Helder. Yeah, there was one occasion when, because the Royal Marines were exercising with the Dutch Marines, and a lot of the Dutch Marines are based in Den Helder, which is a big naval base in the Netherlands. Again, I can't remember what ship I was on, but we were in Den Helder for a weekend. And this was, do you remember the movie Braveheart? The Mel Gibson movie. Anyway, this was when Braveheart was out at the cinema, and I really badly wanted to see it. And I knew that when we were finished in the Netherlands, we were going somewhere else. We weren't going to be back in the UK for a good few weeks, and there was a chance I was going to miss the movie at the cinema, so I thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? I'll go and watch it in a Dutch cinema. And it's in English. Which, what? But here's the weird thing. Obviously, it's an English movie, which was great because I'm English, so I didn't have to worry about subtitles or the movie being dubbed into Dutch, for example. The entire movie was in English all the way throughout, except for one scene. There's one scene where Mel Gibson's character, William Wallace, is speaking to the wife of the English prince, and she's French, played by the French actress Sophie Marceau. And she's chatting to her chambermaids in French, thinking that William Wallace won't be able to understand her because he's just a savage, but he's actually quite well educated and he speaks French. So the two of them start speaking in French, and that's the only part in the entire movie where it's subtitled into Dutch. Is it just me who thinks that's really weird? Think about it for a minute. It's an English language movie being shown to the Dutch in a Dutch cinema, and they haven't bothered putting Dutch subtitles up for the entire movie until the part where the characters suddenly start speaking French. What? What have they got against the French? Does nobody in the Netherlands speak French? Is that it? I mean, I thought you guys were really, really good with languages. I mean, obviously you all speak English. Embarrassingly well. Because the English are terrible with languages. We really, really are. And it's your fault, by the way. It's because you lot are so good at English. And I'm not just talking about the Dutch. I mean, the Germans, the French. The French are a different matter. The French all speak English. They just won't speak English. It's damn it. Speak French or we're not playing. But again, that brings me on to another thing with the whole dubbing and subtitling of movies. Because if you go to see a movie in France, it's dubbed into French. If you go to see a movie in Germany, it's dubbed into German. If you go to see a movie in Spain, it's dubbed into Spanish. This means that French, German, Spanish audiences don't know what Darth Vader sounds like. Think about that for a minute. Think of all those great English-speaking actors with amazing speaking voices. People like Sir Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, James Earl Jones, Leonard Nimoy, Sean Connery. French, German, Spanish audiences have no idea what they sound like because there's a French, German or Spanish actor who dubs the voices for their own domestic audiences. The English comedian Eddie Izzard, he's perfectly fluent in French, and he does a lot of shows in France as well. And one of the things that he does when he does his stand-up routines is he has various different characters that he impersonates various different famous actors to do their voices. So whenever he does God, for example, God always has the voice of Sean Connery. So he's doing this particular joke, and he's doing his Sean Connery impression, and it's just not getting a laugh because the French are like, why is he putting that funny voice on? And they have no idea what Sean Connery actually sounds like. That's tragic. Okay, I found this website called BehindTheVoiceActors.com, and it gives you the names of all, and pictures as well, of all of the non-English actors who did the voice of Darth Vader in the Star Wars movies. And disappointingly, it does not list the name of the French actor who did him in France. But this is really, really weird. In Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, the 1977, the first Star Wars movie, obviously James Earl Jones did the voice of Darth Vader in all the English language versions. But in Japan, and it would have to be Japan, wouldn't it? Because if you want weird, just go to Japan. In Japan, for the original Star Wars movie, there were 4 different actors who all did the voice of Darth Vader. Why does it take 4 Japanese voice actors to do the voice of one American voice actor? How confusing is that going to be? 4 different guys all doing one voice in the same movie. When you have a look at the careers of these guys, they've done some pretty interesting roles as well. One of them, his name's Toru Ohira. He's Darth Vader, or one of the 4 Darth Vaders in Star Wars Episode 4. But he's also done Blofeld, the Bond villain in From Russia with Love. But get this, Toru Ohira is the Japanese voice of Fred Flintstone and Homer Simpson. So, you know, that's pretty awesome, no matter which way you cut it. Darth Vader, Blofeld, Homer Simpson and Fred Flintstone. But the Hungarian voice actor... Sorry, I love this. Hang on, I'm going to have to go back to the website and find it. The Hungarian voice actor who did the voice of Darth Vader in Star Wars Episode 4. His name is Tibor Christoph. Unfortunately, he's dead now. He died on the 2nd of September 2009. But he was the Hungarian voice of Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo-Doo. Scooby-Doo-Doo. You can't have Scooby-Doo playing Darth Vader. Hungary, what's wrong with you, for God's sake? I don't know why this is so funny. Oh, man. I'm sorry, this sort of thing just fascinates me. I'm not entirely sure why. Hang on, why do you even need a voice actor for Scooby-Doo? He's a dog. Is that so Hungarian dogs can understand him? Okay, sorry. I'm going to need a minute here. Okay, you know, it's just easier if everybody speaks English. Well, it's easier for me anyway. Let the Dutch lead by example. Alright, that's quite enough on that subject. What's next? I need to start wrapping this episode up anyway. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting a really, really bad headache. So, what's left to do in this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles? Well, we need to talk about our war hero of the week, don't we? And it's time the Axis forces had their turn. I've gotten quite a bit of stick in the last couple of episodes of Mingles with Jingles from people for not talking about the Axis war heroes, the guys who were on the losing side in World War II. But it's difficult, though. I mean, for one thing, history's written by the winners. And in the countries that lost World War II, Japan and Germany in particular, they don't really like to dwell on what happened during the war. So actually getting the stories of the guys who went above and beyond the call of duty on the losing side is not particularly easy, and some of the more colourful characters, for example, Michael Wittmann, the Tiger Tank Ace, well, he was a Nazi shithead, so I really don't want to spend any time glorifying him. That's not to say that he didn't fight well for his country, but let's just say his politics were slightly questionable. Nevertheless, heroes did exist. Probably the most popular suggestion made in last week's episode of Mingles with Jingles was Franz Stiegler, who was a German fighter pilot. And he was quite famous because on the very same day that he received the news that his brother had died in combat fighting the Allies, he went up in his Bf-109 and came across a very, very badly damaged B-17 flown by an American pilot called Charlie Brown. And instead of shooting it down, he took pity on the crew and escorted them safely back over occupied Europe until they reached the English Channel and stood a decent chance of making it home. Years later, when both men were well into their old age, they were reunited. And at the reunion, it wasn't just Charlie Brown, the pilot of the B-17, and Franz Stiegler, the pilot of the Bf-109, but also the surviving crew of the B-17 and all of the children and grandchildren of the surviving crews of the B-17. Basically, everybody at the reunion would not have been alive if it wasn't for that moment of compassion that was shown by Franz Stiegler that day during World War II. As you can imagine, it was quite an emotional moment. I have actually spoken about this before, however. It just wasn't in an episode of Mingles with Jingles. It was in an episode of Project Man Cave, where I got the model B-17, the old pub was the name of the aircraft, and Franz Stiegler's Bf-109, and was shown the models off, and talking about the story that led to these models being built. So, yeah, I've already done Franz Stiegler. Nevertheless, I need to do an Axis war hero. So, in the Hürtgen Cemetery in Germany, there's a monument to Lieutenant, or more accurately, because he was German, Lieutenant Friedrich Lengfeld of the Wehrmacht's 275th Infantry Division. You've probably never heard of Lieutenant Lengfeld. And what's interesting about his monument is that it was not placed there by Germans. It was placed there by American soldiers, mostly down to the efforts of Colonel John F. Ruggles, who was the commanding officer at the time during the battles in the Hürtgen Forest in the winter of 1944 and 1945. He was the commanding officer of the American 22nd Infantry Regiment. Lieutenant Lengfeld's story was told at the memorial dedication ceremony by one of the soldiers who served under him. His name was Hubert Gies. He came from Salzkotten in eastern Westphalia in Germany, and he was a soldier in the 2nd Company of the Fusiliers Battalion, which Lieutenant Lengfeld commanded. On October the 7th, 1944, his company commander was wounded. The replacement commander lasted only 3 days. On about October the 11th, Lieutenant Lengfeld, who was only 23 years old, became Gies's 3rd and final company commander. Many years after the war, Gies remembered him. With Lieutenant Lengfeld, I lost the best superior I ever had. In the previous hard weeks, he meant much to me and gave me a lot of inner strength. He was an exemplary company leader, and he never claimed more from us as he was willing to give by himself. Led by him, I was on patrol straight into the American forward outposts when the American observation ammunition detonated on trees with a flogging bang, and we got the impression that the enemy broke into our positions. He never said, "Go and check." Instead, he said, "Follow me." On November the 12th, 1944, when the soldiers of the 12th US Infantry Regiment had retaken the Forester's House of Hürtgen, just to lose it again in the forenoon, our company suffered a severe loss. In the early forenoon, an obviously heavily wounded GI was crying for help. He was lying in the middle of the minefield at the edge of the embankment on the eastern side of the road in no man's land. Lieutenant Lengfeld sent me to our machine gun position to deliver the order not to shoot if American medics will show up to try to rescue the seriously injured. Since the cries for help had lasted for hours, Lieutenant Lengfeld ordered our medics to put together a rescue squad. This would have been around 10:30 a.m. Once the lieutenant had organised the rescue troop, he led them through the minefield to try to rescue this wounded American. By the time they reached the road, which was secured with anti-tank mines which were relatively easy to locate, they still had quite a stretch of anti-personnel minefield to cross in order to find this wounded American, and it was at exactly this point when an exploding anti-personnel mine detonated, throwing the lieutenant to the ground. In haste, he was carried back to our company observation point for first aid. 2 deep holes in the back implied that there were severe internal injuries. Led by a lightly wounded NCO who was carried immediately to the medical aid station, but 8 hours later during the evening, he died of his wounds at the main first aid station in Freudheim. The 23-year-old lieutenant was just one of the estimated 12,000 German soldiers who were killed and 30,000 Americans who were killed or wounded in 6 months of fighting that began in September 1944 and lasted far into the bitter winter. Thousands more were disabled by combat fatigue and exposure. The writer Ernest Hemingway said that whoever survived the Hurkenwald must have had a guardian angel on each of his soldiers. One soldier who did get out alive was retired Major General John F. Ruggles, who at the time was a lieutenant colonel serving with the 22nd Infantry Regiment, and in 1994, to mark the battle's 50th anniversary, he organised an effort among veterans of the regiment to place a monument in the forest. Surprisingly, it wasn't a monument to the American soldiers. It was the monument to Lieutenant Friedrich Lengfeld, and the monument reads in English and German, "No man hath greater love than he who layeth down his life for his enemy," in memory of Lieutenant Friedrich Lengfeld. Here in Hürtgen Forest on November 12, 1944, Lieutenant Lengfeld, a German officer, gave his life while trying to save the life of an American soldier lying severely wounded in the Wildeshau minefield and appealing for medical aid. Placed at this site on October 7, 1994, the 22nd United States Infantry Society, World War II. Deeds, not words. That's it for this week, folks. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.